videos going okay, that would be great. Just a couple of thumbs up really quick. I adjusted the live stream settings a little bit this week just to test it out. I added a little bit some low latency settings in YouTube because the delay from the chat to when I was talking with you previous weeks was quite long. So I thought I would test out some new settings to tweak that so that I didn't do the ultra low latency, but I did the low latency, which should be hopefully better than what we had in previous weeks, so that when you guys post a question, I might see it a little bit sooner than I can respond to it sooner, especially since this is all about Q&A, right? So so last time we did a Q&A, it was sometime last month, and I think it was the beginning of last month, or maybe it was September. It was a great show. I didn't really have any sort of agenda coming into the live stream. Hopefully that you guys would come in with some great questions. I can dive in and maybe kick it off with a couple small things, and then you guys can go ahead and post into the chat if you have any questions. That would be great. And yeah, just again, I haven't gotten any thumbs up in the chat room that my audio and visual is okay. So just a quick everything's good would be awesome in the chat room if you could. We're waiting. Good. Excellent, Scott. Thank you. Okay. So I have been I've been working my tail off. Got the second official update out to Foundation 6, and sweet, a lot of OKs. Mr. Nixon's in the house. Thanks, Mike. Chris, excellent. Okay. So yeah, I've been working a lot. I just shoot the shit a little bit. Been working a lot on Foundation 6, and I know a lot of you that are in the chat room already have a copy because you attended the conference. So that's really great. And I know a lot of you are also members of the beta testing group on Weaver Space, which is open to the public. Anybody can join in and have a little peek. It'll be a fly in the wall in terms of what people are doing. I've already seen some really great websites built with Foundation 6. So people really jumped the gun and have been going all out. And I've just been blown away already with the sites that people have been making. It's just really cool to see how the feedback has been so positive about Foundation 6. So also making an official world debut today. I'll get one of these bad boys out for you. Hold on one second. Let me get one. Look at that. It's a baby puppy. Yay. He is 1 week old today. There's the little puppies. My baby puppies came. We got 4 of them. So, yep, we got 4 baby Pomeranian puppies. Excellent. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun the past week. We've been hamsters. You're funny, Mike. Funny, Mike. So, yeah, really cute little puppies. We got 4 of them. We moved them up to my office up here for a little bit. So cool. Let's jump into Rapid Weaver and questions. I was thinking about previewing Foundation 6 a little bit today, give you guys a little bit of sneak peek, but you know what? I figure if I did that, the entire Q&A session would be about Foundation 6. So I think I'm going to leave you guys hanging a little bit. So let me go ahead and start up Rapid Weaver. Oops. Not that project. Okay, what have I been working on? Actually, you know what? I can show off something. So I actually planned on doing this the week before the conference. And you remember the week before the conference, there was a power outage, so I couldn't do a live stream on some video stuff. And so I started a new version of HTML5 video, and it's called Video Pro. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of, oh, hold on. Oh, here it is. Let's see. Yes, here it goes. Make sure that actually works. Okay. This is early stages, but I'll kind of give you guys a little sneak peek of this. Let me go ahead and set up my screen sharing here. Okay. Okay. So this is going to be a completely new version of HTML5 video. It'll be a paid upgrade. And yeah, existing users of HTML5 video will get an upgrade. Will get a discounted upgrade to Video Pro. And what does Video Pro do, Joe? We might want to ask. Okay, so when you add Video Pro to the page, this is what we see. And it allows us to add as many kind of video sources as we want, right? So what's kind of cool is we can provide multiple formats. One thing I haven't done yet, but I will provide the ability to target like maybe a smaller video based on, hold on, I don't think you guys can see that really quick. Let me resize that a little bit. Just go in here. Okay. There we go. Okay. And then I can use my little magnifying glass tool. Cool. So in here, we can provide the obviously the video URL. And then here on the dropdown, you can provide, you can define what type of video, because, there are multiple types of videos. Most of the time we only need the MP4 because that is what's supported by a majority of the browsers now. All the latest browsers support MP4. Some older versions of Firefox and Chrome only supported WebM and OGG. So if you really want to, support really old versions, we're talking many years old, you could do that. But I would say just supply an MP4. And then another thing I will add, I haven't done it yet, but the ability to target so that, you can provide different MP4 files or WebM or OGG files if you want, depending on the screen size. So we can target mobile devices and load up a smaller video for mobile, which is nice, because right now all video players basically force you to load like the same video, an MP4, but across all devices, right? And obviously on mobile, when someone's on a mobile device, we want it to be fast. So, loading up a smaller version of the video could be a very nice thing to have, right? Okay, so that's, and you can have as many video sources as you want. It's just a child stack. And then this is actually really cool. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how many people are really going to use this, but I have the ability to add captions now. So if you have captions for your videos, it's this VTT file format. You can upload multiple tracks, so you can provide multiple tracks for multiple languages for the video, which is nice. And what's kind of cool, a little tidbit of here, is if you upload your video to YouTube, YouTube will auto transcribe videos, and then you can actually download the VTT file from YouTube, which is pretty cool. Now obviously it's not perfect, but it's going to get you like really close. So then you can maybe massage it. It's just a text file. Then you can massage that to be what you want. Okay. And as you see, we support all kinds of, tons and tons of languages. So, I mean, this language list is any possible language you can want. So there you go. And then you could say it's subtitles or closed captions, or, if it's just descriptions or chapter markers, stuff like that. You can do that. So that's kind of cool. The video player itself, I don't have too many options on the player yet. It does have an actual video player. Here, let me put in a video. Let me see. This is completely off the cuff. Oh, here's a cool. I wonder if I have no idea what video that is. So hopefully it's a good video. If we preview that really quick, or is this a vertical video? Oh, apparently that video URL doesn't work anymore. So, but it is a nice, attractive player. You can also remove the player as well. So, if you just want a straight HTML5 video, you can do that. And it has autoplay, allows picture in picture, and all kinds of stuff. So, there's a lot of, this is just a beginning. I don't have a release date for it yet. I needed a break from doing other stuff about a month ago or so, and so I did this. And yeah, completely rewrote the HTML5 video stack. It'll have a lot of nice options for players and stuff like that. So just kind of a little sneak peek to let you guys know what's coming up. I'm also going to do same thing for the HTML5 audio stack. There'll be an Audio Pro stack coming out, and it'll have similar feature set where you can add multiple tracks and you can add captions and subtitles for that as well, which is kind of cool. So Slick, I already see some questions pouring in. So let's see. Question 1. Pi, can it pull data from forms as well as push? Yes, Mike. So let's go ahead and, well, pull data. You mean like get values from a form field, I assume, right? Let me go ahead and open up the Pi demo, since I don't want to build an entire Pi from scratch. We're just going to open up the existing Pi demo file. Continue. Okay. Close that. So that's pretty much what Pi does, right? It pulls data from a form, and then you can manipulate it. And then if you want, you can inject that calculated data back into a form, right? So let's look at some of these examples here. Actually, I have an interesting demo. Actually, this is a great question on Pi, because there is actually a question. I have a support ticket on Pi, and I figure why not answer that live actually while we're doing this. So good call. Okay, so here we go. I have a Pi slider. So let's look at this one. So this is a slider that has a number value. So in this formula here, let's make this a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see it. Okay. If we look at this first one, it's taking the value of slider, okay, because this slider has a name. The field actually has a name of slider. So if we look at that setting, right, let's go ahead and look at this setting. This slider has a field name of slider, okay. So so we use the field name here, and we have slider because you use curly braces and you put the field name in there. So that is taking the value of slider and we're multiplying it by 3, okay? And what that does is that outputs an invisible field called triple, okay? And then we have a few other calculations here. We're also doing round. So we're doing a JavaScript function where we're taking the value of slider, okay? We're doing it times 3, and then we're rounding it, okay? And then we can do ceiling and floor, right? And then to output, so that is taking form field values, right? And then these particular examples here, this is how it's going to actually output all of the values here. And we do that by, if you know how this all works, we just simply, in here, we just put in a span that says, pi dash triple, and that outputs the value of the triple. Okay, so here, let me zoom in a little bit. So we have a little span in here that is, span and class pi triple. Now, the reason I used a span here is because I wanted to prepend this with triple colon, right? I could have just put pi dash triple inside the class name, and that would output the data to the header, but it would replace all the contents of the header with that result, right? So by using a span, I'm targeting I can basically add stuff easily within the content and mix the output of Pi within existing content on the page, which is kind of cool. Okay. And we can get a little bit more complex if we go down. We'll find one. Here's an example of, we have a slider that is a length and width, and we have a Pi that is length times width, right? So we take the input from 2 form fields. So we have 2 fields that we're taking the input from, and we're outputting that to an area called room area, right? Or a field called room area. So let me zoom in again so you guys can kind of see that, right? So we're taking the length and the width, and then we're multiplying those 2 things together within Pi to create a new hidden field called room area, which then we can output to the page. Now, if I were actually submitting this form, room area would be submitted to the form along with the form, right? So we would get length, width, and room area if we were to submit this form, via email or to a database or wherever you're submitting, your form to. So that's pretty cool. Now I had a question here. Let me download the files and whatnot. And here, let me move it over here because it was a support ticket. So I don't want to, I'm not sure what other data was in that ticket. So let me go ahead and bring that up here. Just give me 1 second. Okay. And Ricardo, if you're watching and you're like, oh my God, Joe, I can't believe you just showed off my site to the entire world. This is what we're going to be doing today. So Ricardo from Portugal, at the bottom of this page, created this little BMI calculator. So it's a body mass index. Okay. So it allows you to, you put in your weight and I don't know, you put in 2 formulas. I'm not really sure what that is. Hold on. Let's, here, we'll translate this. Or anyone want to, if anyone speaks Portuguese, Portugal Portuguese, which is different than Brazilian Portuguese, by the way, quite a bit actually. Here, let's just go to translate. It would be interesting to see what these numbers are because I have no clue. Enter your height. Oh, makes sense. Okay, height. So we got our height, and this is our weight, I assume. Yes. Okay. So we're entering our height and our weight, right? Not sure if this is centimeters or what. That'd be cool if he had put some units in there. And this is probably kilos, I assume. Because 71 pounds is quite little, right? That's a little person. It only goes up to 146. So, okay. Now, so he created this form, and this is very similar to that height and width form, right? And it looks like, oh, Ricardo, you're here. Excellent. Okay, so watch me do this. So yeah, so his problem was he, Pi was outputting this huge long, this huge long number, and he wants to get that down to maybe 1 or 2 decimal places. I forget. Let me see what he wants to get it down to. He only wants to represent 2 numbers after the comma. Okay. So he wants this to be 73.50 per se. Okay. So how are we going to do that? So Ricardo actually gave me his project file. Let me download that really quick. Oh, Ricardo, you're awesome. You even created a special page just with the calculations. Oh, you're amazing. Thank you. I love that. Okay. This makes it really easy. Oh, and he even put the English version in here because he knows I'm a gringo and can't read Portuguese. You're awesome. Okay. So let's look at this. So we have, here, let's just simplify the page. I'm just going to delete the Portuguese version, Ricardo, but the math will all be the same because math is languageless. Okay. So let's preview this page really quick. And we have enter your height. Okay. And enter your weight. And our output here is a big, huge, long number. Okay. So what are we going to do? So what we're going to do is we're going to use a to fixed. Oh, I'll open it over here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this JavaScript function because Pi is JavaScript. Okay. So and there is a JavaScript function called toFixed. And basically what you do is you provide it the number of decimal places that you want, right? So let's have a look at Ricardo's Pi. And what he did is he created this formula, okay? He created this formula that is 2, 1, 1. Hold on, let's see. Let's change this up a little bit so it's easier to read. This is weight, W-E-I-G-H-T. He probably just did this for the English. Okay, height. Let's change that from a 1 to be height so that we can read it a little bit easier. Okay, so then in our formula, here, let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, 2 was weight, so I'm going to do W-E-I-G-H-T, And then height was HENDHD, and 1 was height again. Okay. So I did that. So that's our new formula. Okay. So that simplifies it. That makes it a little bit more readable. Okay. So we have weight divided by height is your BMI. Okay. Now let's make sure that that still works. Looks like that still works. I don't think I messed up the formula. Okay. I should have kept the Portuguese one on there. Sorry. Pretty sure that was the formula though. Okay. And then he's multiplying that by 10,000. So, remember we have this JavaScript function that we want to use, and we have number dot to fixed to. Okay. So, what we're going to do is, there's two ways we could do this. Okay. First off, we could do something like this. Let's test this out. Because we want to take the entire output of this and display that. Okay. Let me show you how I would do it. Probably the easiest way is to actually add a second Pi instance. So what we're going to do is, what we're going to do here is we're going to do, actually, no, we're going to test this out the other way. Hold on one second. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to put another parentheses around this entire thing. Okay. So I have parentheses around the entire thing. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this. Okay. And then I'm going to do dot to fixed and then 2. Okay. So basically I put parentheses around my entire equation. And then after that, I put dot to fixed 2. I'm pretty sure that will work. Let's have a look. Boom. That actually worked. Cool. So now, no matter what we do, we now have a BMI with 2 decimal places. Now, if we wanted 3, obviously, right? We would just go into here and we would just change the dot fixed to a 3, right? And there we go. Preview that. And now we have 3 decimal places. Pretty cool, right? Pretty simple. Now let me show you a different way to do this. This obviously works. It works pretty well. I'm gonna put this back to the way it was. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a second Pi instance. Okay. And I'm going to call this BMI display. DIS. I think I can use dashes. I'm going to do dash display. Yeah. Okay. So I'm creating a new Pi instance, and this is going to have a different name. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this Pi instance into it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do in parentheses. I'm going to do let me zoom in so you guys can see this. You open parenthesis, curly brace, BMI, curly brace, close parentheses, and then we're going to do dot to fixed 2. Okay, I'm going to save that. Okay, so there we go. So now I'm taking the input of BMI and piping that into BMI display, and BMI display is what's creating the dot to fixed. Okay, so and that's cool because maybe sometimes if we're going to be doing further calculations on BMI, maybe we don't want to round that too early. We want to continue to use BMI in other places. But for display purposes, we want to actually, have 2 decimals. So then inside Paragraph Pro, we could do BMI dash let me zoom in. So we're doing Pi dash BMI dash display. Okay. Click on that. And there we go. That is now calculating. It's using, so we're using 2 Pi's to do what we want. And we get the same results, but if we needed, again, the real reason you would use this method, it kind of splits your logic up, which is kind of cool. But then, if I ever wanted to use this BMI, the exact calculation somewhere else, then this could be useful, because maybe some, if you need precision, you don't want to round things too early, because it could be a cascading snowball effect. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that helps you out, Ricardo, and hopefully that kind of shows everyone else, some of the power of Pi. And really, it's just W3 Schools is a great place to learn a lot of this stuff. So if you just go to a lot of it is if you go to W3 Schools and you go to this JS number thing, everything that's in here can be used in Pi, because it's all math and stuff like that. Although one of the later, I think a update that I released to Pi a couple months ago actually allows you to use kind of string manipulation as well now. So that can be a little bit trickier though. So cool. Awesome. Hopefully that helped you out, Ricardo. Cool. Excellent. Okay. Any other questions? Hopefully that kind of helped you guys out. Cool. All right. A lot of people saying, Digital Craftsman says BMI formula is kilograms divided by height squared. Oh, okay. So if we want it here, let's look into that, how we can do squares. Okay. Right. So we have here. Right. Here's the BMI formula. So kilograms divided by mass squared. He's right. Oh, wait. Oh, it's different. Oh, it's different for weight or kilograms versus pounds. Probably because it's doing some sort of conversion there. Okay, so height in meters squared. So that's height in meters. So here, let's just continue this. So this is height. Obviously, someone isn't going to be 30 meters. That is kind of insane. So we have 30 meters squared. Okay. Height is in centimeters. Okay, that's what I thought. Oh, because he's timesing it by 10,000. I'm going to trust that this formula is good. But if we wanted to, here, let's just, I'm going to break this formula. But let's say we wanted to, do a calculation on this height, and we wanted to square it. Like, so we wanted to, times it by itself, right? Obviously, well, this is kind of simple. You could just do height times height, right? That's pretty simple. But there's other things that we could do within Pi. So if we say load external libraries, right? There's actually a advanced math functions in here. If we show the cheat sheet, I think I did. Oh man, it got all misformatted. Shoot. Tangents, logs. That's square root this has. Yeah, because square roots are kind of tricky. Okay, you don't need external math functions for something like that. But let's see, JS exponents. I'm not even sure. I don't do too much math inside. Pow. Yeah, that makes sense. Power. So here would be, so you could do pow. So if you want to do like to the power of 3, you could do math.pow. And then, yeah, that makes sense. So if we wanted to do height squared, we could do, oops. Here, let's just copy that. Just for fun, I'm just gonna completely just obliviate this thing. This is no longer going to be a BMI calculator. I'm just kind of messing around. So if we wanted to, let's say, do height. Oh, here, let's zoom in so you guys can see that. So what I did is I did math.pow, which is the power of, right? I tend to add spaces in these just so it's kind of easier to read. It works without them as well. So we have math.pow, which is the power of height to the third. So we're doing height to the third power. So we're going to do height times height times height times height, basically, right? And that should output here. And there we go, right? So if we, I did height, right? So if we change our height, you see that we now get, that is the number of 213 to the power of 3 is that, right? So kind of cool. And we still got our rounding to 2 decimals, even though that obviously isn't going to change anything. Cool. So yeah, it's just a lot of JavaScript. And this is another great site, MDN Web Docs. I use that all the time too. And I've talked about Dash many times in the past. I live and die by this tool. It is a kind of programming documentation tool that has just you can search through all the docs. So like here's all the math properties for JavaScript, and here I have tons of programming languages installed, as well as things like the official foundation docs and whatnot. So yeah, it's really cool. It's a great tool, and I use it for all the time for everything. So cool. Any other questions? For the future of PyStack, please create a button inside it to switch between point and comma. Okay, so point and comma, that has to do with, so I'm not putting in the points. That is the web browser. So if your browser supports commas for numbers, then it will use a comma. And if it uses points, it uses points. So my tool doesn't insert points at all. That's just how the web browser returns it to me. If that's not working the way it should, that's how it should work. If it's not, shoot me an email and I can look into that a little bit more. There are some new international APIs that have recently been, or not recently, they're in all the latest web browsers that do a lot of like currency and number formatting and stuff like that. And that's very, very tricky because, every country, or not every country, but a lot of countries, there's, again, some use, commas and dots, and some use, them in different places. And so, yeah, it's tricky stuff. But yeah, there are some internationalization APIs. I've resorted to setting recursive 0777 permission on CMS data to get total CMS to be happy in the debugger. Are these security implications with the wide open permissions? Okay. Possibly. So basically what 777, obviously what you already know, because if you use here, let's go into let's open up transmit. So everyone, what he's saying is on his server, in order for total CMS to properly function, he needs to I'm assuming you tried other types of settings, but if we go to my CMS, where's CMS data on this server? CMS data. Okay. So over here we'll look that I have permissions of 755 on my server, and that works properly on my server, and it might not on your server. Okay. And it really just depends on how your web server is set up. Okay. So why is that? And actually, I get this if, actually had a question today about dispatch server, and people were, use that to upload files to their server, and they were getting, unable to move file. And the issue was, or I believe the issue was, he hasn't got back to me, is that when dispatch was trying to move the uploaded file into the destination that he wanted, it didn't have permissions to that folder, so it couldn't move the file, right? So why is that? Okay, and this is kind of getting into kind of some basics and how your web server is really set up. So when we log into our web server, okay, right now I'm logged in as Joe Workman as my account on my server, okay? And obviously I have permission to everything in my home folder, right? So I get access. So right now I'm logged in as Joe Workman. And if we look at all these codes, So he had 777, which in reality, if we look at this grid down here, let's zoom in a little bit. Okay. Let's look at permissions. So what do those numbers mean? Okay. So those numbers mean different things. So like a lot of times 755 is probably like the highest you would ever want to go. That would be the preference, because that means I can read the directory, I can write this directory, I can execute everything in this directory. And you could probably go down to, if we wanted, we don't want the world to execute. Maybe you want group permissions, but so who can execute things in this directory? Who can write things to this directory? Who can read things in this directory? And Transmit App has this really great UI based on, that check. You can see how things are. And as I uncheck these particular things, it will change that number. Now, obviously for the web, world needs to be readable, because we need everything to be readable. Okay. Because on our websites, because else we can't display the file, because the world needs to be able to see that file. Now, write permissions. So he had 777, and that means everyone has access to do everything. Okay. So yes, that isn't the best, because what that says is anyone that's logged into my server can write stuff to that folder. Okay. Which means the security of your website is as good as the security of your server, to be honest, right? So that means if anyone else logged in to your server, and this folder was 777, they could possibly find it and write stuff to it. Okay. Now, why did your server work with 777, but not 755? Okay. And the reason for that is pretty simple. For total CMS, let's back up. Web servers run as a user on a machine. Okay. So sometimes, and this is where it really depends. Every host has their server set up differently, right? So the reason 755 might not work on your server is that depending on the user that the web server is running under. So there is a process. Let's back up a little bit more. If we look at Activity Monitor on our machines, okay, even on a Mac, okay, let's look at activity. Wait for that to run. Okay, you'll notice that these are all the processes running on my my Mac, right? And if we see, we have tons of processes. And if we look at this last column, it says that that's the user that's running it, because all these are processes. Okay, it means it could be an app, or it could just be something that doesn't even have a visual component, right? And they all run as a particular user. Obviously, a root user is like, that's the most powerful user on the machine. That is root. Okay, it's like super user. Okay, and you don't want to give people root access to things. Okay, because they could obviously do bad things. It's basically like full admin privilege to your machine. Okay, but the point here I wanted to make is that there's every process on your machine runs as a user. And the same is true on your web server. So your web server, your Apache instance, is running under a particular user. And that means Total CMS is running under that user as well. So when you upload a file or an image or something like that, that user, let's call them, Apache. Okay, let's just call the user Apache. Apache goes, hey, I got this file from the web browser. I need to write it inside of this CMS data folder. So at that point, if the Apache user doesn't have access to write to the CMS data folder, it can't save the data. Right? Does that make sense? So again, that depends on how your host is set up. So I would, if you're really concerned about having 777 set up on the CMS data folder, I would contact your host and talk to them about that, because really that's something that it's a server configuration issue at that point. Yes. So in the chat room, he says www data. Yes, a lot of web servers run under the user www-data. That is a very common thing. Cool. And Mike, this is Mike's world right now, that question. So I'm assuming he was loving that. So yeah, if you have any questions, email Mike. A great question. You know, that is a confusing thing for a lot of people. Hopefully that helped out. So yeah. Cool. Let's see. Did I miss any other questions in the chat box? Perhaps discuss total CMS security in general. Are these sites in danger of tampering? I would say no. Okay. I think total CMS is pretty secure. Obviously, any system can be hackable. And it has to, sometimes I get a question, is total CMS more secure or as secure as WordPress? So WordPress, as you know, gets hacked a lot, right? And that's because, 80% of the web runs on WordPress. So all the hackers of the world are going to be targeting WordPress, right? So they're going to be finding all kinds of security issues and holes and whatnot. And while it's sad for me to say this, total CMS isn't as big as WordPress, right? So to be honest, hackers don't give a shit about it, right? So while I have worked really hard on the security of it, and Total CMS 2 is even better, I think it's pretty darn secure. Okay. And yeah, it's pretty secure. Now there are issues of, let's say for example, PageSafe. PageSafe gives us the ability to store our passwords in Total CMS. Okay. Now, Total CMS stores everything as plain text files. And that's kind of one of the benefits and speed of Total CMS, right? It's very simple. It doesn't require database. And the cost of that benefit is that everything is stored in plain text or JSON files. Okay. And which ultimately is plain text. Now, because of that, that data is stored in plain text. A user could, if a user got on your server, they could read in that file and see what the passwords were. And then they could log into Total CMS with those passwords. But if the user's on your server anyway, I mean, yeah, again, a lot of times is, if someone gets on your server, then at that point it's too late anyway, right? But with that said, another thing that could be done is if the person figured out and knew the exact URL to the file that stored your passwords, at that point you could have some issues. And I do have an FAQ on how to secure that. And it's basically like an htaccess parameter. I have an FAQ on that. I'm not going to try to dig that up right now, unless there are no more questions. Basically, you could just put the path to that particular file in the htaccess file with this, syntax, and it'll lock down that file so that it can't be, accessed from the web browser, right? So here, let me give you an example. Let's do here. Okay, these are all files, right? And here, let's just look at this one. As you see, that's just a file. Okay. So if I again, I'd have to know the exact path to this file, right? But if I were to go open up a web browser and go sandbox.joe.net/CMS data text / hold on, let me just right click and say copy URL. That's easier. There we go. Right? That is the path to the text file. I knew exactly what that was. And it's not easily discoverable. I only know that path because I'm on the server and I know the names of the files, right? But it is accessible from the web browser. Okay. But again, you can lock that down. I have an FAQ that gives you an htaccess file that you can actually lock down all text files except images. You don't want to lock down all of CMS data because images have to be accessible. And so, yeah, you don't want to lock down the entire CMS data folder. But again, that's only if someone really understands and knows the exact path to something. And in general, that isn't an issue, especially since total CMS isn't big enough for someone to really target. So, and even then, even if they try to target CMS, there's no way to know what the CMS ID of something is because you as the user are the one that set it up, right? So, and those are all dynamic, right? So, yeah. But again, like I said, I am making this even better in CMS 2. It's already better in CMS 2. So, but that's how things work in CMS version 1. Hopefully that helps you out. So is there a way to edit option templates in Foundation form stacks? Okay, good question, Julia. So she wants option templates. Okay, so let's just here. Let me close out some of these files. Let me build out a quick form here, really quick. Forms. Man, there's so little stacks in Foundation 1 compared to Foundation 2. Okay. So we got a base, and then we have I'm assuming you mean select options, right? And in here, she wants the ability to put in her own option. So she has option templates. And is there ability to edit these? Now that I fully understand your questions, you want to edit what this is. That is not possible right now. So if you want to edit it, edit it. Man, that's a horrible 2 words, edited it. Yeah. Even edited it. Anyway, if you want to edit these, then email me. Okay. Yeah. If you have a use case, I'm happy to enhance these or make a new version of it or something like that. I'm open to these. These are just things that I just randomly was like, okay, let's do this, or if someone requested it, right? Here, but there is, I did this in Foundation 6. In Foundation 6, well, here, let's do this. Here, let's preview this. Okay, so here we have, hold on, let's put this in hold on one second. Let's just put that in a column. Let's just make this look a little nicer. We'll do here. Just do. Okay, so now I have this select box of Australian states. Okay. Again, if any of these are wrong, maybe there's a new state in Australia. I don't know. Let me know. Okay. I don't follow that. So, anyway, let's say I wanted to add something to this. Okay. And what I could do is, if I inspect the element here, what I could do is, so I've opened up the dev inspector and this shows me all the generated HTML of this page. I could right click on, so this is the select box. I can right click that and I could say, copy as HTML. Okay, here, let me do that again. So I right click on this. I say copy as HTML. Okay, I now have the HTML for this form field on my clipboard. Okay, so then what I could do is, if I wanted, I can now make sure I have everything else in my field set the way I wanted to. Okay, and I could delete that. And then what I can do is I'm going to put in HTML. And that's an HTML stack. And I'm going to delete everything in there. I'm going to paste. And look, magically, it looks the same. Because it's just HTML. Right? It's just HTML. Now, you can't do that on, select inputs are pretty simple stuff, right? That might not work on, if you're trying to do that to impact or something like that, that's a different story. Okay. But something simple like an input, definitely works well like that. And then obviously, you can go into this HTML, you can kind of figure it out a little bit, right? So you could be like, you can see that there's just these little option strings here. And if I wanted to add a new first option, oh, sorry. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see that, right? So you just give it a value and a title. So we have option value equals the value, and then we have our title. Okay, that shows up in the drop down. So there we go. We preview that. We have our hello live stream up there, right? So right in there, hello live stream. Pretty cool. So yeah, the crux, if you want to, if you think you have a good idea for either a new select option, right? I'm always open to adding more stuff, because if you want it, chances are somebody else might want it. Okay. If it's sort of generic, but if it's a custom thing, yeah. Another thing, if you want it, if it's something that only you want, but maybe you want to use it in multiple places, hold on one second. Let's put that select box here. Another thing you could do, I didn't even think about this. You can combine these things, right? So if you just purely wanted to add something to this, then you could just say, let's say I wanted to add a new Australian state. Can't believe I didn't think about this before. All you do is you add a new select option, and it'll combine them, right? So, let's just, hello, live stream. Okay. So here I have now, if I want it first, if I want it before the Australian states, that should work, right? So now I have hello live stream and the Australian states. And if let's say I wanted to add Australian states and US states, there we go. You could just, now I have a huge list, right? Or, you can even do things like, let's delete that one. Let's do an option group. And let's do Australian states in that option group. And we'll do US states in this option group, right? And here we can do a label of Australia, United States, right? So now I have an option group with two different templates in there. And if I preview that, we have, you see up here, it created a little caption for Australia. We have all the Australian states, and then we have the United States and all of the US states, right? So that's kind of a pretty cool thing. Boom. So yeah, options are really flexible. Adding, if you just wanted to add to a template, that is probably the best option. It's just, again, just go like this, and you can tack on as many of these as you want. So you can make that drop down list as big as you want. And let's say, if you wanted to use this multiple places, this would be a perfect time to create a template out of this, right? So, hold on, let's go back to this, right? This example here. If I wanted to create, let's say I wanted to have access to this, and use it on other sites potentially, because maybe this is a field that, this type of layout, a select box I want to use all the time. Just perfect example of using a template. Create a template out of it and just say, AUS and US states, right? Right. So now if I ever needed to use this same exact form field in another one, right? I already have it built, right? So you could kind of build out the select box that you want and then save it as a template. Cool. But again, I am totally open to ideas for more templates if you want them. So cool. Great question, Julia. Thank you. When you release Total CMS 2, what will be the process for upgrading a Total CMS 1 site, if any? Also, if getting ready to start a new site, would it be worth waiting until Total CMS 2 is released? I don't know. It's up to you. It's how urgent it is. Total CMS 2 is it's a 2020 thing, and it's over half done. But I don't know how long it's going to take me. I'm horrible at guessing that. I thought I was going to release Foundation 6 in May, and here we are in November, and I'm about to release it, right? So, yeah, I thought 2019 was going to be the year of Foundation 2 and Total CMS 2. But yeah, it didn't happen. So, I don't know. What will the migration? What will the migration be? So, Total CMS 2 will. I will build a process to migrate all of your data. You won't lose any data, period. There's no question about that. You will not lose data. The stacks, however, It's probably going to be like a Foundation 6 sort of thing where you're going to have to rebuild it. So I'll probably release Total CMS 2 as like a new stack. It won't update or replace the existing Total CMS 1 stacks. And the main reason behind that is I wanted Total CMS 2 to be really different and better. And I didn't want to still have any of the kind of baggage that Total CMS 1 brought. I wanted to make sure we had the best solution possible. And by keeping it separate, if people want to stay on Foundation 1, they can. And it will completely function as for the foreseeable future, right? So that's why Total CMS 2, you'll have to re-implement the stacks and kind of rebuild the site with the stacks. Now, you don't have to rebuild the entire site, but, the CMS stacks will probably need to be updated, especially on the admin side. However, on the content side, macros, I'll probably build some sort of, if you're using macros throughout the site, or, like CMS tech stacks, which actually in the back end just use macro on the page. I'll make sure that I'm going to try to make sure that those macros just work still, even though there is a new macro syntax. I'm going to have support for the old macro syntax so that they just kind of just work. So that you don't need to worry about updating all the macros and stuff, because I do want to make sure that upgrade process is as smooth as possible. Because I am going to be giving free upgrades to Total CMS 2 to everybody. And I want to give them as little excuses as possible to not upgrade. So Total CMS 2 licenses will be a free upgrade. There will be a couple other new versions of Total CMS, which I won't go into now. But your existing Total CMS licenses will continue to work, and you won't have to pay for an upgrade to version 2. So that's kind of nice. Question: how close is Foundation 6 in RapidWeaver in terms of functionality to Foundation 6 framework from Zurb? It's identical, because it uses the framework. I've added a little bit on top. I've added a few things, like, for example, the forms and stuff like that. There are things that the framework just doesn't even go into. But I want to make sure that you guys had access to some things. So I've gone above and beyond what the framework does. But everything the framework does, your stacks can do, and then some. Because, like I said, I've added some stuff. And now that I have control of the framework, some of the stuff that I've added into the stacks, I'm going to probably try to, over time, integrate that back into the framework if it makes sense. Not everything does make sense. How many stacks are in Foundation 6? So here, I'll show you the stacks. So let's look at, here's Foundation 1. Now at the top, there's Font Pro. Not Foundation 1 stacks, but so there's a decent amount of stacks here, but it's pretty manageable, pretty small. In Foundation 6, there are a lot more stacks, especially forms. Forms are, I went all out on the forms in Foundation 6. There's a lot of really cool new stuff. And yeah, so there's a lot of stuff here. Icons are still temporary, but there's there's a total of 173 stacks. But that includes, that number isn't actual stacks in the library. That's stuff like, when you drag out a particular stack and there's, these little things, these little doodads here count as a stack as well. Because in actuality they are, I just make them so that they're kind of hidden from the library and you don't see them by default. But yeah, there are 173 stacks in total. But as you see, I haven't even counted the number that are in the stacks library. But there's a lot more, at least probably double than what we have in Foundation 1. Let's see. Can Pi show and hide different select fields? No, Pi cannot show and hide fields yet. That is something I would love to do. Is they have the ability to show and hide particular fields based on other fields. I haven't done that yet. But that I think Pi might be a good candidate for that, because Pi is kind of a good form automation sort of tool, right? So, yep, not possible yet. If selected US, then show US state options. Okay. So Sarah's saying that what she wants to do is, use Pi to, if someone says they're in the United States, then show the US state fields. If someone says they're in Australia, show the Australian states, so on and so forth. And Mike suggested GeoTarget, and that is a possibility. What GeoTarget allows you to do is, you could say, if someone is inside the US, display this data. If someone is inside the UK, display this data, right? But that means if someone is inside the UK, they can't select a US state because it's done by their IP address. And it also means, well, depending on how good their VPN is, they could have a VPN that could potentially obfuscate that data as well, because it is done based on IP address. Will you change the pictures from Foundation 6 from a star to different? Oh, yes, Gunter. Yeah, like I said earlier, right now all the Foundation icons are stars. The colors will probably stay the same, but yeah, they'll all have. I was more focused on getting the stacks done than icons. So icons is one of the probably what I'll work on next week. Actually, I think it's going to be on my plan for next week. Is I'm gonna design some new icons for Foundation. They won't be squares or rounded rectangles anymore. They'll be something cool. I won't spill the beans yet, but they'll be something interesting. Sweet. I think we've gone through all the questions now. Let me know how. So at the beginning, I said I turn on some low latency stuff, some settings for this stream. I'm really, really curious to know if that was okay. Because I definitely felt like the questions were sometimes previous weeks when I had to wait. It seemed like I saw a question come in and it was like about something I talked about, 5 minutes ago sometimes. But now today it seemed like it was a little bit more, instant. So curious on the bandwidth and the latency and how the streaming quality was. Let me know. If you don't in the chat box, just ping me a message. That'd be great. I'd love it. So take care. I hope you guys enjoyed this week. And yeah, we'll see you over on Weaver Space. We have a big hangout coming on Friday. If you want to see more on Foundation 6, I have been doing some shows and tells on Fridays at the Hangouts with Foundation 6. So if you don't have a copy, if you don't have a copy of Foundation 6, check us out on the Hangout. Hopefully I will get it out this year. I want to do it by the end of this month, but we'll see. Maybe the first week of December. But yeah, we're close. We're about a month away. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. And we will see you next week. Bye.